Okay, recording is on. Now for this demo, right, I want to show you guys, right, about the curves and surfaces tools, right. Now normally when you start Maya, you are at the poly modeling, and from the beginning of this module until now, we've been using the poly modeling tools, right, to create all the different shapes and so on. But we have not used these curves and surfaces tools yet. So this is a very, very powerful method of creating surfaces. And in fact, when Maya first came about, or the early version of Maya, right, this is almost like the default method of creating surfaces. But I will first have to explain to you all what NURBS surfaces is all about. Now, if you take a look on the top part here, okay, give me a second, let me run my Zoom it, because I think I turned it off. Alright, so if you take a look at the top menu, the top part here, you see that it also has all these options to create different surfaces. Now, let me just create one shape over here. This is a NURBS sphere, alright? So it is different than a polygon sphere. Let me just create both of these objects side by side so that you guys can know what they are. Now, both of them actually look the same. I mean, if you never select them, okay, you never know that they are actually different. So for this object here, this is the poly mesh object that we are now commonly always working on. Whereas this one is a shape that is basically created with curves. Now, when we right mouse click on the mesh object, right, we see things like edge, face, vertex, and so on. However, when we hover over the NURBS object and if we right mouse click on it, right, we don't see the edges, the vertices, and faces. What we see is something like isopalm, surface point, and control vertex, right? And then also if you want to edit this, right, it behaves very differently than what you see on the mesh over here. So I just want to let you know that there is this big difference over here. So in simple terms, the surface you see over here are basically created with curves. Alright, so if you have a couple of curves, right, you can create a surface. So let me just delete this and I'll start by introducing you to the curves over here. Now, on top of the curve creation tool, right, there's all a bunch of curve creation tools. You can create a NURBS circle, NURBS square. Honestly, right, I don't use these a lot, but most of the time, right, I'll be using all these curve creation tools here. And then there is curve editing tools where you can attach separate curves or cut separate curves and all that. Okay, but one of the most common uses that I always do is to use this EP curve creation. So right now I'm in EP curve creation mode. And normally when I draw the curve, right, I try not to draw it inside my perspective view. Alright, so I'm going to tap my space bar to go into my 4 views. So now on my side view, front view, and so on. Okay, so I want to go to my front view and I'll start by drawing a surface. Okay, or drawing a cross section. Okay, let's start by drawing a recognizable shape. I'm drawing half of this only, like this, and then I'll finish it over here and enter. Okay, and then in order to convert this curve into a surface, okay, I need to use another operation. If you take a look on top over here, there is this thing called the Revolve. Alright. Now, all of these operations, right, can be found under the curves. Like for example, this section here can be found under curves. Alright, and then this section here can be found under surfaces. So if I want to convert this curve into a surface, I will use the Revolve. And straight away you can see that I created a surface over here. So let me just go to the front view, and the funny thing right now is that it actually revolves straight into a what do you call it, a mesh object for me. So I'm going to undo that. Now by default, let me go over to the surfaces and revolve. The default, right, is actually a curved surface. And let me just reset this. Okay, so now it's reset already. So let me revolve again. So I'll use the revolve. And this is the surface that it will create for me. Okay, so this is the created surface, this is the outline. Now, the good thing about this method of creation is that if I don't like this shape, I can still go back to the front view, right? Front view over here. I can go over to the control vertex, grab the control vertices and move it around, and I can still change the shape of my glass and so on. Okay? Like that. So let's say I'm happy with this, then once you want this to become permanent, okay, you want this to become permanent, then you apply a delete history. So edit, delete all by type history. And then now this curve, right, if you try to move, go to control vertex, right mouse click, go to control vertex and move, right, you can see that it's no longer affecting this shape anymore. Alright, but can we actually edit this? This one is very hard to edit because it still works on control vertices and all that. This is very hard to edit. So we have to do one more process. That is, we need to convert it into a mesh object. So how do we convert this into a mesh object? Okay, we can find it over here. Modify, convert, then the very first option over here, NURBS to polygons. Now, we do not want to use the default settings, so we go to the option box, and we're going to reset this. Now, if you use the default settings, and you do a convert, right, I'll hit apply, you will end up with a shape like this. And luckily, it still keeps the original, and we can come and work on it. Now, for this particular shape here, you can actually export it to a game engine, and it will run just fine. In fact, the game engine will like this a lot, because it's triangles. But if you want to export it to another 3D program, or you want this to subdivide properly, we need to convert it so that it has 4-sided faces instead. So we can use the option over here, quads. But let me show you the problems if you use quads. If I use quads, and then I say apply, okay, make sure you select the NURBS one first. If you click on quads, and then you click on apply, you will create, yes, 4-sided faces, but at the same time, you also create multi-sided faces here. So this method, right, if I press number 3, it's going to end up with this very weird subdivision. You can see this very tight angle over here. Right, so it might not subdivide properly. So actually, the best way to convert a NURBS into a proper 4-sided is to use control points. Just click on control points, and then convert. So now you end up with a shape looking like this. Yes, it doesn't look like the original shape, and this is actually the most basic subdivided version of this shape here. If I were to press number 3, however, you can see that it actually looks pretty close to this shape here. So you can use this tool to create your subdivided shapes as well. Now, the NURBS itself, right, or the surface tools here can be very powerful. Now, honestly, I don't use these tools that much, but there are certain objects, right? Let's say I want to create a cross-section, like a tube or piping, right? If you want to create using these curves, you can do that. So for that, I will temporarily go to the top view, and I'll draw a curve. Okay, I'll use the EP curve again to draw. I'll start from the bottom here. 1, 2, click and drag, right, to draw the curve. Let's say I want to create a cable that is following this length like that. Then the next thing I want to create is the cross section, right? So for the cross section, I'm just going to use a circle, a NURBS circle. But for this to work properly, I'll need the circle, right, to be matched to this starting point here. So I start the drawing from here. So first, I need to use the snapping tool, right, to snap it to the beginning here. Okay, so you must hold down to the C key, holding down the C key, right, to start to the beginning here. Then I have to rotate this until it is about 90 degrees. Rotate this, the curve until it's about 90 degrees, right, facing the curve like that. So once you have it oriented like this, then you just select the cross section, then shift select the path that you want it to extrude, and then you use this extrude, and it should create the pipe for you. And if you notice that it's black, okay, that's because the curve is, or rather the surfaces are flipped. Alright, so if you want to convert the thickness, you just need to select the original curve, the circle, if you can find the circle, I think it's here. Right, if you change the size of the circle, you can control the thickness of this tube here. Okay, and also if I rotate the circle, right, I can rotate it until it matches the orientation of the tube. And then if I want to, I can select the curve point itself, okay, or rather the edit point, grab the edit point of the curve and I move it around, I can change the shape of my tube. Okay, like that. Alright, so let's say once you are done with editing this, then I can select the surface, then I can convert it, modify, convert, and then mesh the polygons using the same control options, apply. Then I have my mesh. And if it looks black like that, no worries, we can go to mesh display, and then reverse. And then now we have our gray piping. And if you press number 3 to subdivide it, and then you can see that this is the mesh version of our tube. And if you want to, you can go over to the edge here, and if you want to extrude, now we can extrude it because this is a mesh object. Okay, so there are plenty of uses for this NURBS tools. Alright, so I want you guys to go and create some objects, create a tube from the extrude, and then create a surface from this. There's one more thing I haven't shown you. Rather than create a final subdivided mesh object like this, or using conversion, when you apply a revolve, right, or this operation here, you can find it under the surfaces, revolve. If you click on the option box, okay, there's an option that allows you to create it into a polygon straight away. So the output geometry, rather than NURBS, I can say output it as polygons. Okay, and then when I hit on revolve, and see it will generate the polygons for me. Okay, but unfortunately this one is flipped. Okay, if I press number 3, it is black in color. So again, if you have a black surface like that, you have to go over to mesh display and reverse. Alright, so this is basically what I want to show you. So what I want you guys to do right now is try to use this NURBS tools to create some wine glasses or bottles or pots or pans. Okay, so I will do another quick demo. First, go to your front view, then go to EP curve, use the EP curve tool. Alright, and then draw the curve. Okay, let's say I want to create a plate or bowl. Okay, and then press enter to finish. You can adjust it by go to edit point, grab the edit points and then put it in the center. You can use the snapping tool to put it in the center grid here, center line here. Adjust the shape that you want. Okay, so I think we can also insert, let me see whether I can insert more control points now. Oops, okay, undo. There are other ways of creating curves. You can use a Bezier curve as well, but right now I'm using the EP curve. Let's use this curve and then do a revolve. And then I'll end up with a polygon object because I adjusted the revolve options earlier on. Now press number 3 and now I have this bowl. Now I want to flip it, so I'll go to reverse the surface and now I have my bowl. Okay, so this is what I want you all to do. If you can, please create a bunch of revolved objects using the NURBS tools. Okay, turn on wireframe. Alright, do a screen capture and then submit that as your exercise today. And once you are done with this, you can continue to, actually you can start to model your selected object already. You can start to do your assignment. Alright, once you got the images planned. Alright, so I'm going to stop the video now.